Hello and welcome back to Defying the Stars Tarot and Astrology. Thank you for being with us. We were away for a 2-week hiatus while I figured out why my PC that I usually use to make these videos was on the fritz. But we have figured out our technical difficulties and we are back. So if you were waiting on us, thank you for your patience. As always, we are here to do our weekly pick a deck reading. The idea here is that you will pick one of these 4 decks to help answer a question for you. And the question we are going to be addressing this time is, how will I overcome this challenge? We have a lot of challenges in life of all kinds of shapes and sizes. I'm dealing with quite a few right now, so this feels a bit like a very good time for this reading to ask, how do we overcome this? We have 4 decks to choose from here. The links to the timestamps for each deck will be below, so you can jump ahead to the reading that calls to you. Our first deck is the Dali Tarot deck. Our second deck is the Critical Role 10th Anniversary deck. Our third deck is Cat Tarot, and our fourth deck is Modern Witch Tarot. So whichever deck speaks to you, go ahead and jump to that portion of the video, and I will see you there for your reading. Welcome to deck number 1, our reading for today's question, how will I overcome this challenge? I have gone ahead and shuffled the deck off camera and I will get right into the reading. So we'll cut the deck and draw our first 3 cards. That out of the way. All right, so card number 1 is going to be our Page of Swords. Make sure we get that in frame for you. Card number 2 is the 8 of Swords. And card number 3, the Knight of Wands reversed. All right, so let's get into it. With this challenge, how will we overcome it? The first card we have here is the Page of Swords. The advice that comes with the Page of Swords is to do your research. With the Page of Swords, it is often seen as kind of a messenger or a spy, somebody who's sent to scout something out, gather intel, and bring it back. With this specific reading, I would say that the advice that comes from there is that the best way that you can overcome this challenge is to accept your position as somebody who doesn't know a lot about the scenario, doesn't have a lot of background info, doesn't know exactly what's going on. Something may be way out of your control and you are not sure what's going on. It may be something that you've never dealt with before, something that you have very little experience with and you feel way out of your depth. And so that Page of Swords is a reminder there to take your time and really scope out the situation, do your research, figure out what it is that's going on, what the nature of this challenge truly is, and from there you can come up with some better solutions. Our next card in this series is the 8 of Swords. The 8 of Swords is a card that's all about getting stuck in a bad situation, getting stuck in a victim role. With the 8 of Swords, we usually see someone who is surrounded by swords. They're often blindfolded, and so they are stuck and they can't see their way out of the situation. However, most of the time in depictions of the 8 of Swords, that person's not actually stuck. They are not completely surrounded by the swords. They are not tied up. They can get out, and they just lack the ability to see it because they are blindfolded. Now, we don't have the same imagery in this tarot deck, but I think the meaning remains the same. The advice here is to, yes, you probably are a legitimate victim in this scenario, but the advice here is to pull yourself out of that feeling. Try to get a different perspective on the situation and figure out ways in which you actually do have some control over the situation. With our final card here, we have the Knight of Wands reversed. The Knight of Wands is a character who is all about impulsive action. The Knight of Wands is don't think, just do it. If Nike had a tarot card, it would be the Knight of Wands. Just do it. The Knight of Wands doesn't spend a lot of time thinking, planning. It is action oriented. It wants to go. And I think with this card coming in reversed here, the advice is very literally maybe hold your horses, because the knight wants to get on his horse and ride. And the advice here is like, no, 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 no. You need to take your time. You need to not rush headlong into whatever you think the answer may be. Blindly chasing something down, blindly fighting is not going to get you the solution that you're looking for. Let's go ahead and draw 3 more clarifier cards to see if there's any further information we need to know. But I think this is a really clear reading so far. Take your time, gather information, get a new perspective on the situation, and really just slow down and take stock before you go charging into action. So with our clarifiers, our first one here is the Ten of Wands, I believe. Always have to count on these Dali cards. The Ten of Wands. And that does appear to be upright. But it is hard to tell on this deck sometimes. The Ten of Wands is a card about reaching the culmination of your efforts. It is a card about a lot of energy and action coming to a fruition. It's kind of the end of the finish line in a lot of ways. And so I think that with it coming in on top of the Page of Swords, I think that maybe the message here is that if you can take the time to slow down and take stock of the situation and get a better scope of it and a better idea of it, that the solution that you're looking for is maybe closer than you realize. You will get to that finish line if you can slow down and get that wider perspective. The information you need is out there. It is just something that you have to take the time to uncover. And with our next clarifier, we have the King of Cups coming in on that Eight of Swords. And so I think this is good confirmation that this is about managing your emotional state. The King of Cups is extremely emotionally mature. He is able to balance emotion and reason. He controls his emotions rather than being ruled by them. And being so in control of his emotions, he is able to exercise empathy and compassion for others without giving too much of himself. When you apply that kind of emotional maturity to the Eight of Swords, I think that the message here is that, yes, it is tempting to get caught up in feeling sorry for yourself, in blaming others for putting you in the predicament that you're in, but how productive is that going to be long term? The important thing here is to get control of your emotions so that you can see with a new perspective and you can start to own your own power again and know that, yes, you are put in a terrible situation, but you still have a lot of power to control or influence this situation and get it back to what it is that you want it to be. And with our final card under the Knight of Wands, we have the Moon reversed. So with the moon is all about the kind of shadow side of things, the things that hide in darkness, the things that look a little different in the moonlight. And when the moon is reversed, it's also really closely related to your intuition. When the moon is reversed, we are out of touch with our intuition. And I always think of it in terms of like when you're a kid and you are still afraid of the dark and every shadow looks like a monster. Everything looks like a boogeyman or a ghost or something like that. what this refers to is being in a situation where you're not seeing things clearly. And with it coming on the Knight of Wands reversed, I think that the message here may be you are seeing everything as a monster that you have to fight, and you are ready to go charging into that fight and start taking them down. But you're not seeing things clearly right now, and so you may be fighting the wrong things in your eagerness to get going. You know, and especially coming back to the Eight of Swords, that feeling of being trapped, circumstances beyond your control. I think it can be tempting to try to fight against the things that put you in this situation that weren't within your control, rather than accepting them and moving on to what is within your control. So I think the overall message here from all of these cards is to take a step back, take stock, look at the problem with sharp analytical eyes, try to control your emotional state and take the emotion out of your assessment of what is going on here. And when you do, it will help you to see things more clearly and take action that is more targeted to the problem rather than the things that you feel fired up about right now in this state of heightened emotion. I think that that's a pretty good overall message to leave you with, so I'm going to wrap up this reading here. Please feel free to let me know what you thought of this reading, if you liked it, if you hated it. I always appreciate comments. I also appreciate you hitting the like button if you enjoy these readings, and if you want to see more, please consider subscribing to the channel. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here. I hope to see you again in a future reading. Hello, welcome to the reading for deck number 2. Again, today our question is, how will I overcome this challenge? I have gone ahead and shuffled off camera so you don't have to see or listen to that. And now I'm going to cut the deck and we'll get right into it. So we'll start with 3 cards to give us a baseline, and then we will draw some clarifiers to get deeper into it. All right, so for our first 3 cards, we have the Four of Wands reversed, the Ace of Cups, and the Emperor reversed. So in terms of addressing a challenge, with the Four of Wands reversed, I would say the message there is it's time to get up and go. The Four of Wands is a card that is about rest, homecoming, kind of that idea of like returning home after a tough journey, and there's kind of a celebratory atmosphere that everyone's together again, but it's temporary, right? You can't stay there forever. There's still more work to be done. And so with the Four of Wands coming in reversed here, I would say that you're probably coming off of that kind of rest, and now it's time to get moving again and get back to work on resolving this challenge. Rest is important. You need it in order to stay mentally, emotionally, and physically able to handle these challenges. But it's time to let that rest period come to an end and get back to work. With the Ace of Cups, I think that this is a message that there is an opportunity here. You may not be able to see it at this time, but in this challenge, there is an enormous opportunity to tap into a really beautiful source of it sounds corny, but the whole idea of the Ace of Cups is like it's this fountain of universal love that pours forth from on high, and it is there for you and loves you. I think the advice here with this card is, one, to know that you are loved and supported by a higher power, and that is always accessible to you and within you. But this may also be a signal that there's an opportunity here for emotional connection, romantic connection, creativity. These things are all associated with cups. So bear that in mind as you're thinking about the challenge that you're trying to overcome. Does that message apply here? If you are going through something that it doesn't feel like those kinds of ideas apply. Like you just don't see where a relationship is going to come out of this, or you don't see where you know, a creative idea is going to come out of this. And again, that may not be something you see now, but it may come about later. But if none of that makes any sense, then I think this card is a reminder to just know that you're never alone in what you're doing. Even if you're alone on this physical plane, even if you've got no one in your corner, you are part of a cycle of universal love and support, and that is still within you and there for you. But for most of us, it's good to remember that we are loved here on this physical plane. We have people around us who care and who are ready to support us. Sometimes we just have to be willing to ask. And sometimes pride can get in the way, sometimes fear, but I think this card is a good reminder that if you're not getting support from the people who love you, maybe it's time to ask for them to step up and help out a little more. Finally, our final piece of advice here is the Emperor reversed. The Emperor is someone who is very much in command of his realm, very much in control of everything that goes on around him. He is someone who dictates and delegates and really controls the puppet strings of his empire. With the Emperor coming in reversed here, I think the advice may be that it's time to loosen up the stranglehold on what you're doing. Whatever this challenge is, there is a danger of trying to control it too tightly, trying to keep too tight on the reins of whatever the solution is. I think what this card is saying is that it's time to let other people participate in leading this effort. Let other people participate in helping you. And don't be so afraid of not having it all together. Don't be afraid of showing that you are not in full control here. But let's get some clarifiers and see if the cards bear out and reinforce that message. So on our Four of Wands reversed, we have the Sun. So I think that with the Four of Wands reversed, we talked about that sense of needing to get up and go again, that the rest is over. With the Sun, what we have is a reminder that good things are on the horizon. I think that perhaps you are in a state where you feel good right now, and maybe you're kind of feeling like, God, I don't want to get back into this. Why could I just let it go? Could I just forget about it? Could I just give up and walk away? And with the Sun, I think that it's a reminder of two critical things. One, that there are always good things on the horizon, that there's always something to look forward to. But two, it is important to remember that it can't always be sunshine and roses. Not every day is going to be sunny. There will be times of challenge and struggle, and you can't run from that and try to stay in the sun permanently. So I feel like there's two contrasting ideas there. With everything in life, it's about balance. And so I think this combination of cards is calling for a balance. It's calling for you to understand that, yes, there will be times to rest and retreat. There will be times to take a break from trying to solve this challenge. But once you do that, then you have to accept that you have to get back to work from time to time. You can't stay in the sun forever, but you should bask in it when you can. Next clarifier here are Two of Wands reversed. With the Two of Wands, we tend to have a decision point at our hands. There are two different ways that you could go, two different paths you could take, two different courses of action. And the question becomes, which one is the right one? They both seem equally compelling. With the Two of Wands reversed here, I think maybe there's some indecision. There is some unwillingness to commit to one course or another. And so I think with that coming on the Ace of Cups, the message here is that it's time to dig deep and look at your options and go with the one that has the most potential. Even if it seems riskier, even if it seems impractical, the thing that it's that idea of, no risk, no reward. If you play it safe here, you might be missing out on a pivotal opportunity. So as you're making this choice, really think about what sparks your passion, what sparks your inner motivation, that intrinsic drive to do something. And if you're trying to choose between, say, 2 job opportunities or 2 relationship opportunities, this is really a call for you to tap into that intuition and go with the one that really moves you inside, and not the one that necessarily looks good on paper. If the one that looks better on paper is the one that moves you inside, then that should be an easy choice. But I suspect that's not the case here, or we wouldn't be asking, how do we figure this out? And with our final card, we have Temperance reversed on top of the Emperor. So I think what this is telling us is that there's some imbalance. And with the Emperor reversed, that would make sense. There is a, if you are keeping a stranglehold on things as the Emperor, if you are keeping it all close to the vest, if you're keeping it all to yourself, if you're trying to do it all, be it all, have it all, Temperance reversed coming in here reminds us that there has to be balance. And it goes back to what I was saying about the Four of Wands and the Sun, how you have to have a balance between rest and effort. You have to have a balance between sunny days and difficult days. And here you have to have a balance between doing things for yourself and being in control of things, and letting other people take the wheel, letting other people take the reins. Everything in moderation is really the message of Temperance. And I think with Temperance reversed here, you're probably having a hard time doing that right now. And it's a reminder that extremes are just not going to get you very far. I think that this seems like a really complicated situation with a lot of layers, a lot of nuance. But the overall message I'm getting is one of balance, of really just kind of returning to your intuition and returning to what you know is right for you, and making sure that you are restoring the balance. Because if you go from major swings of working day and night, burning the candle at both ends, and just wanting to quit completely, that's not sustainable. You can't yo-yo like that. This reading is a reminder to balance your effort, and trying to be in charge of everything, trying to run everything, trying to do it all is also going to burn you out. So you have to remember to let other people in, let loose of some of that control sometimes, and have a little trust and faith in others. And then the central idea here, this Ace of Cups, this opportunity awaiting you, the decision probably isn't going to be easy, but that's the turning point of all of this, is coming to that decision and making sure that it is in tune with your greatest good as you know it to be, with your own intuition, and following that. That seems to be the overall picture here, is that we've got to balance things out. We've got to find that moderation, and then we have to tune into that intuition and follow that path. I hope that this reading has been helpful. I know it was a little complicated. It was a lot. Please let me know what you thought with a comment or by hitting the like button. If you'd like to see readings like this in the future, please consider subscribing to the channel. Otherwise, I just want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you. I hope to see you again. Hello, welcome to our reading for deck number 3, Cat Tarot. Today, again, we are asking, how will I overcome this challenge? I've gone ahead and shuffled our deck off camera, so I'm going to cut it right now and draw our first 3 cards. We'll look at those 3, and then we'll draw some clarifiers to get a little more information. All right. So for our first 3 cards, we have the King of Pentacles reversed, Judgment reversed, and the Devil reversed. A lot of reversals. Just seeing 3 reversals off the bat, I'm guessing there's some inner turmoil here, so I hope we can help resolve that. All right, with the King of Pentacles reversed, what we have is a situation where someone may be feeling a little too greedy, a little too dictatorial. I would say the closest card to the King of Pentacles is the Emperor. The King of Pentacles at his best is warm and generous, very much has it all together, is in control of what's going on around him, has his resources well managed and lined up, and is very hardworking and has worked very hard to get where they are, and is not one to trifle that away. But when you get that in reverse, what you start to see is some of the negative aspects of that character. Somebody who can be a little too tight with the purse strings. Somebody who is a little too frugal, a little too controlling. Maybe even a little has gotten a little lazy, has been resting on their laurels, or is, when people have a lot of success and then they start to look down on people who haven't reached that same level of success, and they have that attitude of like, I worked hard to get where I am and you need to as well, that kind of lack of empathy for people who are still struggling once you have made it. That can be one of the negative qualities of the King of Pentacles here. So whether this is a person that you're dealing with, or maybe you feel like this resonates with you personally, this is something that you've been feeling, maybe you're falling into a little bit of this behavior. I think with it coming in as advice for how will I overcome this challenge, I think that there's 2 pieces of advice here. One way to look at it is you should be cautious right now. You should be careful with your resources. You should guard against indulgence, overspending, things like that. And the other way to look at it is, don't let that energy make you stingy and selfish, because there's a fine line you walk there, right? When you are trying to be frugal, when you're trying to cut back, when you are trying to preserve limited resources, it can be very hard to soften that when you need to. It can be very hard not to have this extremely hard line and deny yourself and others just across the board, instead of being more strategic in how you are managing those resources. It's an idea that resonates a lot with me. I have been in this weird pending limbo where I may be losing my job, but I'm just not exactly sure when. And so I have been really struggling with, how do I budget right now when my paycheck is still coming in and I don't know exactly when it's going to stop, but I know that it might stop very soon. And I want to be putting away I want to be squirreling away as many nuts for winter as I can, because winter is coming, you know. And so I think that this is a caution against going too hard. It is a reminder that, yes, it is good and wise and important to be careful with your resources, to manage them well, but don't let that make you as a person hard. Don't let that overcome reason. Don't set such a hard line that there's no crossing it. Our next card in the series is Judgment reversed. And I think that there's probably something looming for you. And I can't help but feel like this reading is probably mostly for me. But so if you're in this with me, I feel for you. With Judgment reversed, I think that there is something pending. There is something that where we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. We are waiting to see how things pan out. We are waiting to see what the judgment is, you know. It reminds me a bit of like somebody on trial waiting to hear the verdict. But take note that this is judgment, not justice. So it's not that we are waiting for well-deserved just consequences. This is more just, we are waiting to see how the world is going to judge this situation. It's not necessarily, especially with it being reversed, I don't think it's necessarily based on merit. It's not, how well are you handling this? And that's going to be the outcome. This feels like something external, something more out of our control. But there's this sort of pending thing. We are waiting for, maybe literally waiting for a judge to rule. But, you know, waiting for somebody to make a decision, waiting for the outcome to be determined. And that's a really tough place to be in, because you don't have a lot of information to go on. And I think that leads us pretty naturally into our next card, which is the Devil reversed. I think the advice here is, when you are in a tough situation, there is a lot of temptation to give in to your worst instincts. You know, sometimes when you're under a lot of stress, when we're under stress, we do silly things. You know, for me, when I am super stressed, I want to comfort myself. I want to eat things I probably shouldn't eat. I want to buy things I probably shouldn't buy. And I want to, you know, take whatever action I can to alleviate that stress and make that pain go away. But we can also really give in to our fear when we're under stress. We can see the worst possible scenario of every situation and be blind to the positive possibilities of every situation when we are under that kind of stress. So I think the advice here is, don't give in to all of those temptations. Don't give in to that temptation toward negativity. Don't give in to that temptation toward self-indulgence. But also, coming back to the King of Pentacles over here, don't give in to that temptation to become, you know, the most hard-nosed ruler of your kingdom. You know, we have to find a balance, but let's not give in to temptation to go wild. Let's not give in to temptation to go down the darkest roads possible. Let's get some clarifier cards, because I think there's a lot more to get out of this. especially because we're saying, how will I overcome this challenge? And this seems mostly like, how do you survive in this moment? And it seems like there's probably more challenge to come. All right. So with the King of Pentacles reversed, we have the Ten of Swords. I think that, the Ten of Swords is a really tough card. It doesn't look quite so tough on this deck. But if you think about it, this cat's got himself in a real pickle because he has climbed this screen door and is now stuck and has no way to get back down. Because cats are a lot better at up than down, as we all know. With the Ten of Swords, there is a sense of resignation, of acceptance, of this thing is done, dead, over. And fighting that is A, impossible, and B, futile. I think with it coming on top of the King of Pentacles reversed, I think it's maybe a reminder that your ability to control this situation is truly gone. Your ability to predict, to navigate, to manage everything, to perfectly manage your resources and come out on the other side, all of that is gone. And the best thing that we can do now is to accept that life is out of our control, accept that the circumstances we're in are out of our control. Because the more we fight it, the more we keep trying to claw our way out of it, the more stuck we're going to be. I think the advice here is to accept when you are no longer the ruler of your kingdom as you thought you were, that you had built yourself up to be. Accept that the comfortable lifestyle that you have built for yourself may be coming to an end. And that is so much easier said than done. But it's our advice here. It is the first step toward overcoming this challenge, is acceptance. All right, with Judgment, we have the Seven of Coins reversed, Six of Coins. I know numbers. This is the Six of Coins reversed. With the Six of Coins, we tend to have a feeling of sitting on top of the mountain, as it were, sitting on a throne, feeling like we have reached the pinnacle, and having within our control a lot of resources and having the ability to spend those either for good or for ill. The Six of Coins is often associated with the fine line between altruism and manipulation. Are you really helping someone out of the goodness of your heart, or are you helping them because you hope to gain advantage from that? With this coming in reversed, I think we find ourselves on the wrong end of that equation. We are the ones now in the position of, are we getting something with strings attached or not? And I think that this coming on top of Judgment, this idea of waiting for a decision to be made, waiting for the outcome to be determined, we find ourselves in this position of trying to balance our resources, as I was talking about with the King of Pentacles reversed, that balance between frugality and miserliness. But we also have this situation where we are kind of feeling our puppet strings pulled a little bit. And I think the advice here is just to stay aware. Stay aware of our own state of mind, our own state of giving and receiving, and be aware that offers right now may come with strings attached. It's not to say don't accept them, but make sure that you know what is truly being offered, or what is truly being taken away, so that you can make the best decision possible. And for our final card, we have the Queen of Swords reversed coming in under the Devil. I think that this resonates a lot with what I said about the Devil reversed initially, which is we have to be super careful not to give in to our worst instincts. For the Queen of Swords, her worst instincts are to overthink everything, to be cold, emotionless. She's really, to put it bluntly, she's a hard ass. Like, she has no time, no patience for excuses, no leeway for other people to make mistakes or be emotionally fraught. She has no patience for weakness in others. And I think that this is a real call for us as we are going through this challenging time to not lose our compassion and not lose our empathy for others, to not get so wrapped up in negative thoughts that we become cold and callous and hurtful to other people. Because the Queen of Swords, if she's not in control, if she is at her worst, she is not paying attention to who she cuts with her words or her actions. So I think this is a reminder to try to rise above that temptation to give in to negativity, to try to rise above that temptation to let the anxiety overwhelm you and color who you are. It is really important that we maintain our sense of self and compassion and empathy, and to not let the situation define us. So overall, broad strokes, what we've heard today, the empire that we have built, the kingdom that we have built, all of the resources we have accumulated, the comfort we have established for ourselves, that may be coming to an end. And in fighting that or trying to manage that to death, we could run into trouble. It is important to accept, and in that acceptance, move forward with a clear head, to be balanced and careful in how we expend our resources that are now more limited than we expected. We have something pending, something hanging over our heads that is not becoming clear anytime soon. But when it does, it's going to be important for us to really have a clear head on our shoulders, to be able to evaluate what comes next, to be able to evaluate the offers that are made to us, whether those are offers of charity, assistance, whether they're new job offers. It's important to look at those with an eye of what strings are attached to this, and is this something that I am willing to, is this a bargain I am willing to make? Is this a deal I'm willing to make? And finally, while we are in this struggle, we must avoid giving in to our worst instincts. We must avoid the temptation of overindulgence, of getting wrapped up in negative thoughts, of losing touch with our empathy and compassion for others. We have to maintain that sense of who we are and what we believe in, and not let the negative space define us in a way that is going to be hurtful to the others around us. So with that, I think that is the message of this reading. I hope it was helpful to you. Please consider hitting the like button or leaving a comment to let me know what you thought of this reading. If you'd like to see more readings like this in the future, please consider subscribing to the channel. I want to thank you so much for being here today, and I hope to see you again soon. Hello, and welcome to our fourth and final reading for today's video. Again, our question is, how will I overcome this challenge? I have gone ahead and shuffled this deck off camera, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it and we'll get right into it. I'm going to pull 3 cards to get us an initial idea of what's going on here, some initial advice, and then we will move into some clarifier cards to get more information or just more in-depth advice. All right, to get started here, we have Judgment reversed. This card also came up in the reading for deck number 3, so if you were feeling a little torn between 3 and 4, and this one doesn't quite resonate with you, maybe consider going back to reading number 3. But we have Judgment reversed, we have Death, and we have the Moon. All right, so advice, how will we overcome this challenge? With Judgment reversed, I think there is a sense of pending doom, or maybe not even doom, but just kind of waiting on an outcome, waiting on a decision. It is not clear at this time what the final result is going to be. And so the challenge may be that you just don't know what's going on right now. The challenge may also be that you are waiting for someone to make a pivotal decision for you, and you need to know what you can do to influence the outcome of that, influence the this determination, because it's going to be extremely meaningful to your life. We'll see as we get into this whether that is something that is within your control or not. Oftentimes it isn't, but we will see what the cards have to say about that. But overall, I get a sense of Judgment Day is coming. Judgment Day can be a good thing if you think that you will be rewarded for what you have done, or you think that the judge in question is kind, merciful, fair. It can be a bad thing if the judge in question is not any of those things, or if we are reaching a culmination of a bad stretch that we're about to pay for. But I think that waiting on a decision is one of the hardest things there is. So we have here this kind of idea that the outcome is not yet determined. A decision has not yet been made. With the Death card, we are called to accept that all things come to an end. If that is the decision that you are waiting on, whether something is over or not over, this card may be a good indicator that you can prepare yourself, brace yourself for it to be over, and try to work on accepting that we have reached an end here. But with the Death card, there is a very important caveat, which is that with death, there is rebirth. With death, there is new life. Even on this card, you see the sun coming up on the horizon, right? Even though death has come this night, with dawn, there is a new day. Life goes on, and life is cyclical. The things in this world that die go on to nourish the new life that comes after it. So bear that in mind, that just because something is coming to an end doesn't mean something new isn't beginning that is going to be as good or even better. So keep that in mind as you are trying to reach that acceptance of the end. Next, we have the Moon. The Moon calls on us to tap into our most primal intuition, to reconnect with the darker parts of ourselves, the shadowy parts of ourselves. because in that knowing yourself so completely, that's when true self-awareness comes in. And it's really hard to be in touch with your intuition and be in tune with your highest good if you are in denial about things, right? So with the moon, there's an acknowledgement here that things are uncertain. We are wandering through the darkness. The sun is gone. We have only the moonlight to guide us. But if we tap into our primal intuition, if we tap into that deep part of ourselves, we can still find our way. So this is a great invitation to reconnect with yourself. Learn to sit quietly with yourself, whether that's, meditation or spiritual practice, prayer, getting back to that part of yourself that just knows, what is right and wrong, that knows what is good for you and not good for you. Tap into that, because that's what's going to guide you through this challenge. Let's get our clarifier cards to see a little more information. So on top of Judgment here, we have the Queen of Pentacles. Judgment reversed, we talked about it, meaning there's some kind of pending decision, some kind of pending outcome. With the Queen of Pentacles coming in here, I think that the advice here is that it doesn't matter what the decision is, because you are someone who is secure in themselves. The Queen of Pentacles is someone who has really built her own little queendom of riches and abundance, and she has done that through hard work and resourcefulness and warmth and generosity. And so having all of those qualities, it is important to remember that no matter what the judgment ends up being, you are someone who is capable of building something. You have done it before. Even if you lose it, you haven't lost those qualities that got you there to begin with. And so I think this is a reminder to have that resilience and confidence and belief in yourself that even though things may look grim right now, even though something may be coming to an end, you are in control, you are in charge, and you have all of the resourcefulness and capability necessary to rebuild or even to maintain what it is that you have built. So, don't think that just because something is coming to an end means that you are going to lose everything. Because what you have within you already is what has gotten you to where you are. And it is what will carry you through the challenge ahead. All right, next with Death, we have the Five of Wands. So the Five of Wands is a situation where there is a lot of conflict, a lot of activity. There's so much going on here that it's hard to make heads or tails of it. It is hard to see where the boundaries of this conflict lie. It's hard to tell who's on whose side, who's fighting for what. In that sense of chaos and confusion, it can be unclear what the outcome is going to be. I think with this coming on top of the Death card, I think that maybe there is a situation where there's kind of a will they, won't they? What's really going on here? Is this really over? People are fighting against that, trying to prevent the inevitable end, or they are, or it's just hard to see how this thing is going to shake out. I think the advice here is to kind of rise above all the noise and to try to find your way to acceptance that regardless of how this fight pans out, you are going to be okay if you have accepted that it could be over and have prepared for that and have prepared yourself to find a new beginning. Even if it ends up being unnecessary, that level of preparation and acceptance and resilience will carry you through the time of conflict and uncertainty. And for our final card, we have the Ten of Wands reversed. So with the Ten of Wands reversed, we have a message that we haven't quite reached the finish line. You know, with this card, we see this woman trying to carry her 10 wands to the gate of a city through an apparent desert. And so you can imagine the grueling journey we've been on, carrying all these wands, all this distance, and to be that close and to see that we're not quite there yet. There's still more obstacles in our path, or we may not be able to make it all the way. That is a really tough thing to try to get one's mind around. With that Ten of Wands reversed, coming in on the moon, I think it is a reminder that we have to tap into our inner resources and our inner power, our deepest instincts and intuition, in order to get us through that extra stretch of effort that is going to be necessary to get to the finish line. It is about digging deep into yourself and finding those reserves that you maybe didn't know you had. The advice here, I feel, is to dig deep, because it's not over yet. It may not be over for a while. There's still more work to be done. But again, coming back to that Queen of Pentacles, you are resourceful, you are hardworking, you have used that to get where you are. It's time to dig just a little bit deeper. Even though, and that may be hard, because when you reach a certain level of comfort and security, everything in you is just screaming, I shouldn't have to do this right now. I worked so hard to get to this state, and it was supposed to be permanent. It was supposed to set me up for life, and it didn't. And so the call here is to really dig deep and remember who you are, remember those traits that got you where you are, and call on all of that to get you through this challenge. So broad strokes here, just to kind of recap. There is something looming, something pending, a decision, an outcome, a result that may be causing you a lot of anxiety, but it's important to remember that you have incredible strength, incredible qualities that have led you to success, and they will lead you there again. The situation is up in the air. There's a lot going on. It's hard to understand. The best thing that you can do right now is accept the possibility that it may be coming to an end, that this chapter of your life, your career, your relationship, whatever the situation may be, it may be coming to an end. But that does not mean that everything is dead and done and over. That does not mean that there is no hope on the horizon. With every ending, there is a new beginning. And so if you can keep your eye on that, if you can work through those stages of grief, because grief happens over all kinds of things in life. If you can work toward that acceptance stage and work towards some hope and positivity for what might come next, that will carry you through. And finally, dig deep into yourself. Reacquaint yourself with yourself. Get back in touch with your instinct, with your intuition, with your knowledge of yourself. Dig deep, because you're gonna need to be truly in touch with yourself and be able to draw on that inner strength in order to get through the final hurdles that are ahead, because there are a few more ahead before we reach the finish line. I hope this reading was helpful. If you liked it, if you would like to leave a comment, I would love to hear about it. I'd love to hear about it. If you hated it as well, please be honest with me. You can hit that like button if you don't mind. If you'd like to see more readings like this in the future, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you're well, and I hope to see you again in the future.